This is the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast, supporting, inspiring and promoting women in business.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by Tracy Foster, who is the founder of the Burns Club. Tracy is multi-award winning and has many accolades, amongst which is the British Empire Medal, which is a huge Queen's Award, and has worked as a play specialist and a specialist in burns for over 22 years, both at Pinderfields and also independently as the Burns Club. Tracy works tirelessly fundraising in efforts to help bringing over £30,000 a year to make youngsters' lives who have been victims of burns and trauma to improve their lives through a variety of different activities which we will be talking about. She recently received an Inspirational Volunteers Award from the Yorkshire Businesswoman too, and she's now a finalist for EVA's Inspirational Woman's Award. Well, it's a delight to have you here today, Tracy.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
So, Tracy, burns are probably one of the most harrowing, painful injuries a person can endure from lots of different vantage points, psychologically and physically, leaving lifelong scars. Tell me, what was it that actually got you into the work that you're doing with the Burns Club?
Yep, so I work full-time on a children's burns unit at Pinderfields Hospital, and seeing the impact that a burn had on a child, not only in hospital, but when they get home, it's as if they've had every speciality looking after them whilst in hospital. This may include doctors, nurses, OTs, physios, every professional going. Then you go home, it may be the place where the injury happened, and they seemed to struggle more once they went home. So I didn't want to close that door for the children or the families. So setting up the charity was a lovely option.
It comes from a place of real empathy from what you've just described, Tracy. Can you tell me more about your background and your training? And again, it takes a great deal of strength, given that it is such a traumatic experience. What kind of triggered your emotions really into, I suppose it's the aftercare and the longevity of this programme?
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my role. I am a play specialist on the burns unit, so my background is all early years. So I started off as a nursery nurse and then did my training for hospital play specialist. I go into dressing changes for children, so doing the distraction and supporting parents through these painful procedures. I mean, I always say if I could bottle up the screams when they're in a dressing change, I wouldn't have to do any interview whatsoever. It is traumatic. You sat there, it may have been your cup of tea, and seeing skin strip off a child, it's horrendous. And I do always say to all my parents, if you're giving them a cuddle, I promise you 100% when you walk out of this hospital, you will have a smile on your face, because they do heal and they do get better, but they are left with the trauma of the burn injury, whether that's still seeing the injury happen and still seeing it. But for a parent, every time they look at their child, it's with the scarring, it's a reminder of what happened.
That's a really interesting point that probably most people don't even think about. The repercussions, not just on the child, but the parent. And moving forward, it's a traumatic experience all round. What kind of things do you do to support parents specifically?
In hospital itself?
Even afterwards, through the play and all of the other activities that the programme involves, really.
So from the charity point of view, I support parents. We have parent support groups where they can meet other parents and discuss and let them realise that it isn't just them and accidents do happen. We all drink tea, we all have a bath, and little things like that can happen, but it is an accident. There's not many goes out there to accidentally spill a cup of tea on the child. These things do happen. So we have the parent support group, plus we have Christmas parties and other events where they can meet up. But we also have a camp for children that's had a burn injury from 0 to 7 for the parents and the siblings. So everybody can talk about how it's had an impact on them. So parents talk to parents and asking what's happened, where they are now in the future, what treatment they've had, plus the siblings. It's amazing to see siblings talk, because we talk about parents, but it has an impact on siblings as well. I've known children where friends at school have said, is it your sister that's got a scar face, or is it your sister? So it does have impact on siblings. Plus, parents can spend weeks and weeks in hospital with a child that's had the burn injury, and the last picture they had of their sibling maybe on fire or with skin stripping. So it has a big impact on them as well. So the club is not just for the child that's had the burn injury, it's for everyone.
And that's so important from a parent's perspective. You know, there's a lot of guilt that we carry from day to day, in any case, irrespective of whether there's an accident or not. But it's an invaluable service. Can we talk a little bit more about your background, Tracy, and your training, and really the journey to where you are today? Because, again, it takes a lot to get to the work that you're doing. And I'm curious as to what triggered that, really, and what brought you to where you are.
Yeah. So my background is early years. So I did my training as a nursery nurse to start with when I was raising my own children, so I could stop at home, look after other children and mine at the same time. And then I went to work for Sure Start, which is working with underprivileged children, where I started my degree in early years and education. And then I got a job in the hospital and as a nursery nurse, and then did my training as hospital play specialist. And then you become the voice of a child. So what child's rights are, what they can do, and also being there for them when doctors are explaining things, but it's like a second language to a child and sometimes to parents. So I'm there to take it to their level so that they can understand it. But I also distract a child during the painful dressing changes, but I'll work with them for physio, because once you've had a burn injury, you've got to stretch that burn at all times, which can be horrendous for the children because it may be contracting as it heals and then we have to stretch it again. But instead of just stretching it, I would fetch out a car for a child to move in. So they're moving the legs, putting the feet on the floor. So anything that relates it round play rather than just putting physio on them, as it's not a nice experience that way. Play is natural to every child. So it's that. But this led me on to the Burns Club. So seeing the impact that it had on the child and the family, I wanted to make sure they had something for when they left the hospital so that it didn't feel like the doors was closed. So the Burns Club, although it runs different events, my phone is never ever switched off, and a parent can ring me, a child can ring me at any time whatsoever and just ask for a little bit of advice or just someone to talk to so they feel that they're still connected to the hospital, even though the charity isn't connected to the hospital as such, but it's still a person that works there and know kind of what they're going through.
I love that. You've said some things that really resonated with me just then about being the voice of a child. That's so important. You are like a conduit, which is like a connector between a specialist, a clinician, and the child, because it will be gobbledygook from a child's perspective, what a doctor might be saying. You know, they'll be using probably medical and technical words. But to have that degree of sensitivity and empathy is a real skill set, actually, almost to go back to, you know, a child's brain and process that information. That is not to be underestimated. That is a huge skill. And I think, you know, clinicians probably maybe take that for granted that a child will understand. Also, some of the things that you've just mentioned about the physical aspect of stretching, dressing, engaging with the physicality and movement. It's so important and something that, not many people appreciate. So you've really fine-tuned that skill set, Tracy. It's incredible. And I've read about your background and your training, and, I think it's amazing what you're doing. Are there other services out there that do what you do, that you work with or connect with, or do you feel like it's something that is quite unique?
There is play specialists in different children's departments, but everybody's role is totally different. I do reintegrate children back into school due to the child may have looked normal the day before, then going back to school may go back with scarring and look totally different. They may have to wear pressure garments. So what we do is go into school, we can prepare the children, the friends, ready for the child coming back into school, or we can take the child along with us and let the school children ask us questions rather than asking the child the question. And we do talk a lot about looking different, and we get children to pair up and say, look at your friend, what is different? I might say, you've got blonde hair, I've got brown hair, you've got freckles, I haven't. And it might be lots of questions like that. So we highlight that everybody looks different, and then we get them to pair up again and talk about what makes them special. And it might be that they listen to me, they always play. And we try to put forward that is what's important. Everybody looks different, but it's what's inside that counts. So we try to push that a lot with the children, so it doesn't matter what we look like.
Absolutely. And I think that's just very important from a generic sense, generally just talking of different year groups. I have 2 children myself, and I know that in their specific year groups, there's an ongoing dialogue with children without injuries about celebrating differences, whether it's ethnicity, gender, hair colour, something as basic as that, but taking it to another level of, physicality. That's interesting. So do you actually go into the schools and do workshops?
Yeah.
Tell me what that looks like. Is that like a programme of days, or is it just a one-off?
No, it's when the child needs it. So we don't do it with every child. It's just if the parent or the child shows interest that they want us to go in. Some children don't want anyone to know about their burn at all. But we do go in. It depends on the child itself if they want it. And that can be that we speak just to the teachers. We could talk just to their friends, right up to a full assembly for the full school. So it varies on what that child needs and wants.
So it's quite a huge undertaking, again, just to assess the gravity, I guess, of each case on a case-to-case basis. So, the minutiae is immense, really. So we talked about your professional training. Did you have any specific burns training, or is that something that you've evolved yourself?
Yeah, when I first went in got my interview, it was to work on the general paediatric ward, and they asked me if I would work on the children's burns. So I said I'd try it, see what happens. And 22 years later, I'm still there. And I absolutely love, I know it sounds wrong, but I love children's burns. I love supporting, and I love seeing the end result of when they're happy and smiling again. You can make a big difference.
22 years. Goodness me. That's a long time training and a lot of knowledge. Is the knowledge that you've gained something that you have ever been approached to, I suppose, mentor or even cascade your knowledge through being a trainer yourself?
I have actually been asked to do training with other burns units for the play specialist. I have gone along and told them what sort of work I do. And it is something that I would want to, and they are, which is part of burns. You are British Burns Association, and we're now setting up a group for all burns play specialists so that we can work to a a signpost basically level that we're all working together.
That's brilliant. So you could even create like a toolkit or a handbook, which I think would be invaluable. I mean, I've just from these first 15 minutes, I've learnt an awful lot, Tracy. So I think it would be an injustice not to have that information for, all facilities and hospitals and care units. I think it's a fabulous knowledge that you have to tap into. Obviously, without getting too personal about specific cases, have there been moments that have really challenged you in your work? I'm pretty sure they will have been. And what's kept you going? So what have been the biggest challenges?
Herself. The girl that I did, she wouldn't mind me talking. She was involved in a house fire in ICU. And I helped with the step down of the pain relief. And then she was taken up to paediatric ward. I was there for her from the beginning. And I've worked with her through numerous things. She's now become an ambassador for the charity. But she's not only that, she's become a friend, which everybody from the Burns Club, it is called Family Burns Club, so everybody is as family. I call everyone my child. But this one in particular, she comes to our house. She doesn't knock on the door, she just walks in. She is inspirational, from being on life support to doing so much fundraising for us. She got so close that she comes with her baby now. I travel on my days off to Newcastle Hospital for laser treatment with her. She's part of the family, and it had an impact on me because when I saw her laid there and looking at her notes, her date of birth is exactly the same as my daughter's. So you just look and think, that so easily could be my daughter that's laid there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that is a challenge, but, it's not about the reward. It's definitely not about you feeling elated about, I suppose, and celebrating that they've got through. It's a journey. So a lot of the time we think of burns associated with fire. We think of burns that are, again, somebody says burn to me and I just think flames. There are different kinds of burns, Tracy. Can you talk about some of them for us?
So there could be burns, contact burns, which may be from a radiator, a barbecue, and a lot of the little ones that do that, say up to the age of 12 months, 18, they don't realise, and they put their hands on the radiators, but they don't know, they look for the support of the parent, so they don't do the reaction of taking it off straight away. They will keep the hands there until the parents take them off, which can cause more nasty burn. But there is a contact burn, there's hot liquid, so from hot drinks, and that is the biggest cause of burns and scalds at the moment within us from 18 months. It can be a chemical burn from your bleachers or anything like that. So there is. Another one is treadmills.
Really?
People don't realise for treadmills the danger that they cause.
Would never have thought that.
Yeah, because it's basically like sandpaper to stop you slipping off of the treadmill. So children can go on them, fall off, and it does the injury to the backs or the knees or anywhere they've fallen. Children put the cars on and play with them, and then it causes a friction burn on their hands if they get them trapped. But there's lots of different ones that we get that people don't think about. The hoovers, when they're spinning round, the children get their hands stuck in hoovers. There's too many to mention, but hot drinks is the biggest cause.
So just going back to something that you mentioned, talking about families and support, I'm sure as well as yourself, there are other authorities that get involved in the work that you do, just to safeguard. Again, it's a real 360 approach. So you have to have a lot of sensitivity, I'm sure. A lot of things that you'll be doing are accidental, but there'll be things that, have more complex scenarios associated with it. Is that something that you're aware of? And again, to create this handbook?
Yeah, we do have non-accidental injuries, unfortunately, and it can have a big impact on the parent because sometimes it might be another sibling. It could be the husband or the wife that's going through mental health reasons. So it is a very, very sensitive section, really, of my work. Seeing the other parent, it is traumatic to see them, and they can't believe it. So psychologically, they can't understand why the partner's done it. But I suppose sometimes we get to the bottom of it, but sometimes you never do.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a lot of agencies and authorities that probably are involved. So the complexity of what you do, you have to have a real intuition for that. And do you feel intuitively you kind of, I suppose, you identify very quickly with a situation or a scenario, and you've got the tools to be able to refer?
Yeah, we've got everything in place so that we can refer. Our consultants do get involved, but mainly you do know through the distribution of hot water or how it's happened that you can tell if it's accidental or non-accidental. This isn't always the case, but a lot of the time you can tell.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
Again, from an intuitive point of view as a mum, and that must be very difficult for you to ascertain when to bring in the agencies and when not to. But, that's one part of what you do. So we won't dwell on that. We'll move on and talk about, we've talked about the challenges. So let's talk about something a bit more positive now. The rewards must be aplenty. So tell me about some of the most rewarding parts of what you do.
Do you know what? Everything is rewarding. Just to get a cuddle as they're leaving the ward is just amazing. And as I always say, I look at them to see that smile. What I said, I promise you'll be smiling before you go. And to see that smile is lovely. But when we come to camp, knowing that what they've gone through, that they possibly wouldn't have been able to move the arms or they wouldn't been able to stretch correctly, but then coming to camp and doing high rope stretching, doing everything like that. I just had a young girl this time that the previous year she didn't want to do the zip line because she was so scared. It wasn't in the programme for this year's, but I had to change all the programme at the centre just so she could do the zip line, and she did it. And when she got down, just the smile then and the cuddle, and she was so proud of herself that she'd achieved this. But when we go away to camps, seeing the children share their experience is priceless. It's worth everything. I once had a young girl that wouldn't take her hat off because she had scars, and we were sat at the table and I'm like, you can take your hat off now. And she's like, I can't, Tracy, whispering to me. And I'm like, you can, darling. She went, I can't, my scars on my head. And I just says, everybody in this room's got scars, darling. We're all here for the same. And she looked at the boy next to her and he showed her his arm where he got his burn. And slowly she took her hat off and she became proud that she'd done it, because they should be proud.
Absolutely.
What they've gone through, the journey that they've gone through, the dressing changes, everything like that, they should be proud. I mean, they're not burns victims, they're burn survivors, and they've got to shine through what they've gone through.
I love that. Mm-hmm. From victim to survivor. So empowering that you spin the word and, you change it. I don't know if you've ever watched a film called Shallow Hal with Jack Black, where it's almost about the lens that you're looking through. So you can see a victim or you can see a survivor. And the film is based on looking through the eyes of positivity. So the character in the film actually does not see any impediments or flaws in a person's physical appearance. So it's almost like a psychological switch to see that everybody should be celebrated for whatever they have. And it's about the inner spirit, really. And I think what you're doing is very much like that. It's like empowerment from within. And this, I urge you to watch it, Tracy. It's a brilliant film. But it's almost like you're in a group of youngsters, obviously, and you are talking about perceptions and almost challenging the norms of society right now, which is very much based on optics and fake and social media. So that in itself is very destabilizing for young people. The psychological aspect of what you do, again, it's not to be underestimated. You're talking to young people who may go through life with a lot of insecurities, but to empower them and switch that from victim, as you said, to survivor, it's a really big deal. I do want to talk more about the Burns Club itself, because that's something that you've set up independently of the work that you do at Pinderfields. And I think it's really important to know more about that, and also how people can get involved as well. So tell me the journey to the Burns Club and the funding and all of that too.
Yeah. So the Burns Club used to run under the umbrella of Mid Yorkshire Trust until we got to a stage where we felt that we could run it and set it up ourselves. We also wanted to extend it, because when it was run under Pinderfields, it was just up to children of 18. But working at Pinderfields for so long, I realised that it also had an impact on the young adults. So it may be they're going to university, they have to attend appointments by themselves, they haven't got a play specialist or their mum to talk for them. It may be that they've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And like I say, the biggest cause of burns and scalds is hot drinks that tend to spill down the chest. So then it may be once they get into puberty, they may need treatment on the breast, young girls, and then showing your boyfriend for the first time. It may be that you've got disfigured breasts, you've got scars on there, it could be anything. Showing them for the first time may be scary if it was normal breasts, but then with scarring, it adds to the pressure. And it's also a time when you're starting to go out drinking and socialising more, and you're wanting to wear lower tops or short sleeves or anything and showing them scars. So we're there to support them through this as well. And we had a group of children that all 4 of them that had scars, and I got them all to meet up. That was 18, and they went round town, and they together, 4 of them, were empowering. They supported each other, and it was just lovely that they go on to do things like this.
And like I said, that's independently of the work you do in the hospital, and the support that you need to manage that obviously takes funding. So what are the different channels of funding that you have to support those activities that you've just talked about?
Yeah, so we do have a fundraiser that helps us, that has fetched in a little bit of money for us, but we're working with a new one, so hopefully she will be able to bring more money in for us, funding. But we do like to still try and fundraise ourselves. We feel more that we're supporting the charity. So we run a big masquerade ball every year. And again, we run the masquerade ball. It's called that because we try to say it doesn't matter what we look like, it's what's inside that counts. So that's the background of the mass. We do that every single year in Leeds. And then when the children come to camps, we might put them through challenges. For the little ones, it might be a 5-mile bike ride, so parents get fundraising and help us support us that way. It might be a zip line that a child does that gives them the confidence, but also a challenge for them. So the children may fundraise that way, but we'd run car boots, tombolas, just anything that we can do just to go out there, because it's not only fundraising just a little bit of the funds, it's also advertising us so people are aware of us. So it's that promotional work that we want. So even though people might think you're just doing a car boot, that's not going to raise much, it raises awareness as well.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely getting tickets for the next masquerade ball. How do we hear about that? Is that something on your website? Do you advertise that?
Yes. I've managed to get a volunteer that helps me by accident. I went to a shop to get some flooring for the office. We've got a log cabin in his back garden, and speaking to the guy, he gave us a discount for it. And then later that day, his wife phoned me and asked if she could come to the office to support us at all. When she got there, she told me she had a burn as a child and never had the support. And she's now become a volunteer, and she's outstanding. She
brilliant.
really is a credit to the charity. And she's running the ball this year.
Do you know where it's happening this year?
So it varies every single year. It's always in Leeds. So if you look on the website, or you contact myself or Sally by email, which is on the website, then we'll give you more information.
That sounds like a lot of fun, but at the same time, fun for a real good cause, a wholesome and cause that I didn't realise had so many permutations to it. I've learned a lot from this. Is there anything new on the horizon, Tracy?
We've just set up some new volunteers, and to try and take a lot of work off me, the young lady Sally has actually stepped in and doing a lot of the managerial work for me. And we've managed to get some volunteers, new volunteers, and we've actually wrote a job role so that everybody knows what they are doing, because a lot of come and just say, I don't really know what to do. What is this? So it isn't a job role that's strict. They can change it if they needed to, but just ideas and suggestions of what they can do. So that's taken a lot of the work and pressure off us, so that now I can come along and do podcasts. I could go along and advertise somewhere.
Brilliant.
It just gives me that opportunity to do more, because working on the burns unit and running a charity in my own time, it takes a lot of work.
Definitely. You
and
can
a lot
start
of
to
time.
delegate
Yeah.
and do, like you said, more things like
Yeah.
this to promote and
And
get
then-
the word out.
Yeah, and hopefully then children that hasn't gone through the hospital that still may have a scar, because it doesn't matter what size the scar is, if it's got an impact on you, then they can reach out to us as well and join the charity.
And grow.
Yeah.
And grow the charity and grow the reach of the charity as well, because I think, having listened to you, it absolutely needs to grow. I want to go back to you now, Tracy, again. And I know you're very modest and you're very humble, but you are a multi-award-winning person for the right reasons. And not only do you have the British Empire Medal, but you also have the Yorkshire Businesswoman Inspiring Volunteer Award and other accolades and many more to come. How does that make you feel? I know you're very modest, but...
When I first got the Queen's Award, people told me to use it.
Good.
I didn't know how they meant to use it, because
It's
it
a huge
wasn't...
accolade.
Yeah, it's not something we expected in my family, for someone to get a Queen's Award at all. It does make you proud. It makes you feel that you are making a difference, but you do feel a little bit embarrassed as well. I don't always tell people.
I mean, there are some accolades that are for incredible, groundbreaking things like what you're doing, Tracy. So, you should own that. And then there are other accolades for other things, and I'm not undermining or diminishing anybody's accolade, but I definitely think you should stand proud and own your achievements, because I hope this airtime has given you the opportunity to talk about all the reverberations of what you're doing, because it is so multifaceted, so complex, and so rewarding, and a privilege for us to have people like you in society, Tracy, and I think that's very, very important. I want to move on to your personal situation as well, because I know you've got 3 beautiful children of your own and 2 fur babies. How has that been managing? Obviously, you have to juggle a work-life balance. How's that worked over the years for you?
I have 3 children, but they're not children, they're grown-up children. And my children are amazing. They all help me with the charity. Obviously, 22 years have been basically raise with the charity. They have to come to every event that I do. My eldest son is a trustee for the charity as well, because his background works really well with it. My daughter is a volunteer. My son works whenever he can with the charity. So they are brilliant, and they know they've got to push it and promote it as much as possible.
That's good. It's a family affair then, isn't it?
And it isn't just my children though, my nieces, my sisters, it's everyone in the family that gets involved. But I think that's also for the volunteers, that they draw their families in as well, because it is a big charity and we want to push it as much as possible.
I can imagine that has a cascading effect. You're not just working with one person, you're working with that person and their families as well.
Yeah.
So it will spread with the good intentions that you absolutely embody. I am going to talk more about generic questions now, about being a Yorkshire lass. You mentioned that you are very much a born and bred Yorkshire lass, like myself. And do you think being from Yorkshire has an impact on what you're doing?
I think Yorkshire women are strong.
Yorkshire
we
grit.
Definitely are. Yes. I was raised from my dad that was a true Yorkshireman, and he was proud of his Yorkshire accent.
Good for him,
that
and good for you.
Was put onto us as we have a broad Yorkshire accent, but I'm proud. We are Yorkshire, and
exactly,
it doesn't matter.
There is a dialect in every county of this vast and very multifaceted country that we live in, and I think we should own it and be proud of it.
And I think that if we go to different areas though, people love the Yorkshire accent. They really do.
Or the northern accent, as it's also termed.
Yeah. My son has moved to London and his partner loves his accent. She'll say, please don't lose it.
Oh, bless, that's lovely. Because it is easy to get absorbed by other, I suppose, influences. I lived in Australia for 10 years, so I think I may have an Aussie twang embedded somewhere, but no, I'm true Yorkshire lass underneath it all. So more Yorkshire-specific questions. What's your favourite part of the county and why?
So I do, where I live in Pontefract, I do like Pontefract. A lot of people will say, I don't know why you like Pontefract, but it is up and coming. We've had some new bars put in there, which is a lovely walk, and you can go into lovely restaurants and lovely bars. And I live very close to town where I can just walk in there.
Good.
There is 3 stations, so I've said my son lives in London. I can walk to the station and I'm 2 hours on the train direct to London.
Really? From Pontefract straight to London?
There's just one stop in between us, so that's lovely.
That's better than Leeds.
It is, yeah, definitely. And then, but besides Pontefract, I do love York. And again, we've got a direct train to York as well. So I love York. You can't not love York. There's shops, there's restaurants, there's everything there. So if I was going somewhere and I wanted to go out special, I would go to York for the day or the night.
It's very well connected then, isn't it? That's beautiful. I love York as well. So what would be your idea of a perfect day in Yorkshire?
Oh, I think I would love to go to the coast, any coast in Yorkshire. I do like Scarborough, I do like Whitby, but I would love to go to the coast with us dogs.
Have you never done that?
And we have, yes.
Good.
Yes. But as a family, my children have also got dogs, so which all are at my house at this moment in time. But I would love to go for a family get together, take us dogs, have a picnic on the beach or fish and chips, and just be that family unit that we used to be when they were younger.
That's lovely.
Enjoy.
That's lovely. I can just picture that now, actually. That is so Yorkshire as well. Fish and chips on the beach and the waves crashing, playing with the dogs. It's ideal. It sounds beautiful. Is there a specific person, past or present, that you really identify with in Yorkshire? For example, I love Kathy from Wuthering Heights. she's like a heroine to me. I've always identified with Kathy. Is this somebody that is very Yorkshire that you feel akin to?
Yeah. Now, I was thinking of this earlier, of Yorkshire people, and I've actually wrote his name down, and it would be James Martin.
James Martin.
A proper Yorkshire man,
Yes.
and he highlights this. But I love the fact I'm not a cook, but I love to listen to him. I love to listen to his ideas and new suggestions. So it is something that me and my husband could try together and see what we could come up with, because it does come up with some really, really good ideas.
And he tells it as it is. You know, he once said, it's not a bain-marie, it's a pot of water.
Yeah.
And that's why I love him too.
Yeah.
So fabulous example of a very proud Yorkshire man there. I love that. So, I mean, that would probably be the next question. Who would you love to have dinner with if it was
Well, then it would be James Martin. Yeah. I know I'd get a perfect meal.
Oh.
And obviously...
And banter.
Yeah, banter and maybe some suggestions as well.
So, Tracy, obviously we are the Yorkshire businesswoman. Is there a specific businesswoman that you feel akin to that, again, you'd like to spend the day with and tap into their knowledge and work with them?
Everyone that attends Yorkshire Businesswoman are amazing. I love spending my day with them, listening to different stories and the support that they can give you. But there's one that does highlight to me, which is Madeline Franz, which is the Blossom training that does self-defense for women.
I love that, yes.
Yeah, she is amazing. She can change her programs to work around you. She did do a program for my children from the charity and the parents. This, it really, really empowered the women and the children. But when you listen to her story, what she's gone through, to be able to support others is amazing. But she's got the most infectious smile that just draws you in. Yeah, she's lovely.
Fantastic. And I would agree with you there. And if there's anything else that you want to say, Tracy, today, please feel free to use this opportunity to do so. This is your time. So where we've said we struggle because we are volunteers, it's getting more volunteers in. How can we support you? If someone just emails us, phones us, looks up on our website, then volunteers could come along, and we don't say what job we want you to do because everybody can bring something that's special to them. It could be that they're just good at talking and want to talk to parents, support them, be there if needed. I take my husband along. There's no knowledge of burns whatsoever, but he's got a good knowledge of football. And it is a way to get dads to come around and talk. Football is a natural conduit to engage people in conversation. It also expands into them getting talking together. Yes. And then they start talking about the burn and what impact it had on them. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you come in with a skill, as in for burns. Everybody can fetch something. It may be that they're just crafty and want to do a craft event. There's so much that volunteers. That's right up my street. I'm an artist. The other thing that I think is important, you've just brought something up, representation. Do you have people of different ethnicities with different language skills? Because, you know, you'll have burns from all different parts of the community. Do you have special bilingual volunteers? We don't have specialities at the moment that comes, but people themselves, when we run a camp, we make sure that we've got someone to buddy with them so that they can talk to each other so they're not left alone. That's good. So we always work with the families to make sure they've got the support. That's brilliant. Tracy, it's been an honour, a delight, an insightful, very, very eye-opening talk with you today. And I'm humbled in many ways. And I'm sure the listeners will be very, very inspired by you too. It's been a real honour and a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you for listening.
This is the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast. To join the Yorkshire Businesswoman Network and find out more, visit our website, yorkshirebusinesswoman.co.uk, or find us on Instagram or LinkedIn. This podcast was produced by This Is Distorted.